Hi, I'm Aaron, a developer advocate at Ditto. Today, I'm excited to walk you through the setup and a demo of the MongoDB connector for Ditto's Edge Sync platform. In this video, I'll guide you through the entire setup process, starting with preparing the MongoDB Atlas for the connector and configuring the MongoDB connector in the Ditto portal. I'll then demonstrate how to test synchronization between the Ditto Cloud and MongoDB Atlas using DQL in the Ditto portal. If you plan on performing the actions I'm doing in this video, you should have the following pre-requirements set up: a MongoDB Atlas account and cluster setup, a Ditto Portal account setup. You'll need to request access to the MongoDB connector through Ditto, and you'll need to have the MongoDB shell installed or Visual Studio Code. In this video, I'll be using Visual Studio Code and the MongoDB extension to modify the collection in Atlas so that Ditto connector can see the document changes. In the video description, you'll find links to the setup for MongoDB Atlas and the Ditto portal, requesting access to the MongoDB connector, explore the code repository, and viewing the official Ditto documentation. With that, let's get started. Let's review the steps required to get our MongoDB Atlas cluster set up to connect to the Ditto MongoDB connector. The preparation work can be broken down into these tasks. 1. Create 2 users, one for managing the cluster with the MongoDB shell or Visual Studio Code, and one for the Ditto connector to use sync information between Ditto and MongoDB Atlas. 2. We need to modify the network access list to allow both your computer and the Ditto Cloud servers access to the MongoDB Atlas cluster. 3. We need to load sample dataset into our cluster for the mobile app that we'll use in the test sync functionality between our Atlas cluster and Ditto. 4. We need to configure the MongoDB collection so that the Ditto portal can see changes. 5. We'll need to configure our app in the Ditto portal to connect to the MongoDB cluster. Finally, 6, we'll validate that the MongoDB connector is allowing changes from MongoDB to Ditto, and vice versa. In our first task, we need to make sure that we have 2 database users set up in MongoDB Atlas. You'll need to log into MongoDB Atlas portal to complete this step. Once logged in, from the navigation menu on the left, I'm going to click on the database access link. This should bring up the screen that allows you to add a new database user to MongoDB Atlas. As you can see, I already have a user called Atlas Admin, which was created for me when my cluster was created. This user allows me to connect to MongoDB Atlas and manage the cluster. If you don't have an admin user created, please create one at this time and make sure it has the role Atlas Admin. We'll be using this user later to modify the collection so that the Ditto portal can see changes. I need a second user to use for the Ditto connector. To add a new user, click on the Add New Database User button. Fill out the form with your username and password of choice. For this user, I'm going to add the role of read and write access to all databases in the cluster. Now that my users are created, I'm going to move on to our next task, which is modifying the network access list. The network access list allows you to limit which IP addresses on the internet can access your MongoDB Atlas cluster. In order for the Ditto connector to work, we need to modify the list and add the IP addresses of the Ditto Cloud service to the list. To start this process, I'm going to click on the network access list under the security in Atlas. I'll note that there is already an entry for my local computer that is usually added when you make a cluster. I have blurred this information out for security reasons. Click the Add IP Address button. Now enter the following IP addresses into the form under Access List Entry. With our IP addresses now added, I need to add the sample dataset so that my mobile application can use it. I'm going to navigate back to the database cluster screen by clicking on the clusters under the database section on the navigation menu. Under the ellipse action menu, I'm going to select Load Sample Dataset. This will take a while to load the sample dataset into this cluster, so I'll fast forward to this being completed. Next, I need to modify the collection so that the Ditto connector can see the mutations to the documents and collect those from MongoDB Atlas and update Ditto. I'm going to use Visual Studio Code, a free IDE, to modify my collection information using the admin user we created earlier. You can also use MongoDB Shell if you like. I can get the connection string I need to use with MongoDB Shell or Visual Studio Code from the main cluster page in Atlas. Click on the Connect button. Now we can use the drivers options for Visual Studio Code or the shells options for MongoDB Shell from the list of options to get the connection string. Copy this clipboard so we can paste it into Visual Studio Code. Now I'm going to open Visual Studio Code. If you don't have the MongoDB extension installed, you can use the extension icon and then search for MongoDB for Visual Studio Code. With the extension installed, now I can use the Add Connection button to add a new connection. Now you can cut and paste the connection string into the box that appears. Note that you'll be needing to make sure that the admin user is in the username and the password for the admin user is provided in the connection string. Once you have validated that, hit the Enter button to confirm the connection string. Now with the connection to the MongoDB Atlas cluster created, we need to run a command that will update to allow Ditto to see the changes. The command can be found in the same GitHub repo as the mobile sample apps that I'll show off syncing between the Ditto Cloud and MongoDB Atlas. Let's clone that repo. A link to the repo can be found in the video description. With the repo cloned, I can now open it up in Visual Studio Code. With the repo open, we can open up the update_MongoDB.js file in the scripts folder. This command modifies the collection to allow Ditto to listen to any mutations done to a document in MongoDB Atlas and then sync those changes to Ditto. Let's copy all the contents of this file to the clipboard. Now we can create a new playbook and run this script. I can use the play button to run this script. No, I'll get a warning. Are you sure you want to run this script? I'm going to click yes. With the script completed, we can move down to setting on the MongoDB connector in the Ditto portal. For the next step, you'll need to be logged into the Ditto portal and select your mobile app. You'll note that I've blurred out some information on the portal screen for security reasons. From the main screen, click on the Settings tab. Now click the MongoDB connector link. I'm going to click the Configure button. This will give me a screen to add my MongoDB information in. For the database name, I must add the database from the sample dataset that I added in the earlier step. This is sample_mflix. The connection string is the same connection string I used for the Visual Studio Code MongoDB extension. However, you do need to change the username and password to be the connector user that we created in the previous step. Now that the connection string is entered, I need to add an ID mapping for a collection. I'm going to click the Add Collection button. For the collection name, I'm going to type in Movies. I'm going to enable initial sync by clicking the checkbox. I'm going to take the default mapping for IDs. Next, I'm going to click the Add Collection button. The Ditto Documentation is a great selection that explains ID mappings in great detail, and a link to this can be found in the video description. With my ID mapping set, my connector is now ready. Note that the setup of the connector can take several minutes, so I'm going to fast forward to it being completed after I click the Save button. Now that the connector is set up, we can validate two-way sync using Visual Studio Code in the Ditto portal. From the Ditto portal, let's click on the Collections tab. From here, we should see the movies collection that we started syncing, and the document count should state 21,349. We can use the View link to see those documents in the Ditto DQL editor. To view the full JSON of a given document, just click on it. A sidebar should appear showing the full document in the JSON viewer. To test changes between Ditto and MongoDB, we can use a update DQL statement to update one of the movies in the collection. I'm going to grab the ID and copy it to my clipboard. Next, I'm going to use the DQL editor tab to switch to the DQL editor. To start out with, I'm going to write a select statement that selects that movie using the ID. We can see the information about this movie and click on it again to see the full JSON of the movie over in the JSON document viewer. I would like to change the year of this movie from being 1911 to being 2025. To do this, I can do an update statement. I'm now going to click the Run Query button. We should get the mutated document back. We can use the History feature to go through and reselect our select statement and run that and look at the JSON preview to see whether or not the movie year has changed. we now notice that the year has changed to 2025. To see whether or not this movie has went through and been updated in MongoDB, we can use Visual Studio Code in the playground. I'm going to copy the movie ID so that I can have that in Visual Studio Code. Next, in Visual Studio Code, I can go through and run a find statement to find that document. You can see here I have a copy of the find statement here. I'm going to copy this code and paste it into my playground. Now I need that ID from the Ditto portal that I can copy and paste into the object ID. I can click the run button to validate. I'm going to click yes to confirm I do want to run this script. And you can see here is our JSON document in MongoDB with the year changed to 2025. And with that, we now have the MongoDB connector set up for syncing information between the Ditto Cloud and the MongoDB Atlas. For more information about the connector, please use the links provided in the video description. In the playlist, we have more videos that will show you how to go through and see a mobile application written in several different languages demoed with the MongoDB connector. I want to thank you for taking the time for watching this content, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.